All right, thanks for tuning in to the Our Lads Football Radio Network. I am Greg DePalma, and this is when we're going to handicap as many games as we can, 30 minutes or less. Actually, hopefully 20 minutes or less, but we have so much to get to every week, especially in college football. Now, kickoff is going to start in a couple hours, so normally we're going to do these shows a little earlier in the week, Thursdays, Fridays, the latest, but a little late, but better late than never, you know what they say. So what we're going to do is we're going to start, therefore, with the early games in college football, and we're going to break down the best trends, injury updates, picks, latest odds, and so forth that we can give you in a wide variety of games. But as I mentioned, we're just going to start, first of all, with the games that are going to take place the sooner that you probably get a chance to listen to this show and then, of course, get to watch the game. So let's get to this. Let's start, first of all, with the 12 o'clock games. And there's two games at 12 o'clock that I think are pretty good upset possibilities. And that is Arkansas, Texas A&M. And you can see the little Athlon logo there. My college football partner, Mitch Light, joins me. Mitch Light joins me every, Thursdays, usually. And we go over all the games in college football in about 30, 40 minutes. So that's our OFN College Football Weekly show. Mitch and I, we both liked Arkansas in this game. It's a lot of points, 24. But I also like this game as why not throw a couple of bucks on the money line? Because if you take a look at it, this series has been incredibly close. The last 7 straight years that these two teams have played, and they have played, I believe, most of them in Arlington, where they're going to be playing the game at 12 o'clock today. So the last 7 straight years versus Texas A&M, the games have been decided by, get this, in 4 of the last 5 games, 7 total points. That's just totally weird. So again, 4 of the last 5 games that these two teams have played in Arlington, and I think it goes by a 7-year stretch, 7 points has been the actual margin of victory for Texas A&M in 4 of the 5 games. So Texas A&M won by 7, won by 7, won by 7, won by 7 in 4 of the 5. Now, what this tells us is we got a lot of close games. So why do we care about that's why when I look at the point spread like this and I see 24, I say, sure, okay, I could take 24. I feel pretty confident that based on recent trends, and last year's Arkansas team wasn't very good, and that was a close football game. So I'll take the points. But why not gamble for the money line? This is a perfect opportunity to gamble for what? Because, look, I'll tell you, one of the things that I always do in college football every week, I'm going to always pick at least one game where an outright upset will occur, 17 points or more. And that's just because that's what happens every week in college football. Now, it's not easy always finding those games, but that's the goal. That's what we try to do. Last week, we hit UCLA in that crazy comeback. They were 17 right on the nose. Anyway, Chad Morris, his job is on the line, too. They lose to San Jose State. As we talked about the other day, too, it wasn't a sloppy game by San Jose State. They give them credit. I thought they played well, but Arkansas is from the SEC. You can't be losing to San Jose State, a team that's kind of in the basement of the last few years of the Mountain West. You just can't do it. Starkle threw 5 picks. He's got to be obviously a lot better. But Texas A&M's offense hasn't been all that great. So I think based on this history, the way it's been going the last few years with that 7-point number, if you want to play it safe, hey, 24, I'd feel good with that as well. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but hey, plus 1150 on the money line, I think it's worth it. The other game that I think is worth throwing some money on the money line is Central Michigan, Western Michigan. Now, that's another 17-point spread. Central Michigan is plus 670 on the money line. Now, get this. The road team in this series has won outright 6 of the last 7 and covered 7 straight. That favors Central Michigan, obviously. Also, the Chippewas, don't forget, they're being coached by Jim McElwain. Now, McElwain, offensive coordinator at Alabama, then moves over to get the job at Colorado State. Does a great job rebuilding that program. That's what he's trying to do here at Central Michigan. Doesn't have success in Florida, even though he wins some division titles, but gets crushed in championship games. That's just not good enough at Florida. So he's now off to Central Michigan after a one-year stint in Michigan as an assistant. And I think so far so good. I mean, they were a 30-point dog last week at Miami and lost, 17-12? Now, the backup quarterback, David Moore, had to come in because Quentin Dormady, who had a good game to start the season, is out for the year with an injury. But David Moore had a really good game against Akron. Didn't play statistically as well last week against Miami, but why would we think that he would? That's a great defense. Yet, they really rallied around this kid Moore. They like his guts. That's the type of kid that you're looking for to lead this type of program when you're the backup. And I think McElwain there's something about what he's doing there already that looks noticeable to me that they shouldn't be a 17-point dog to a team that I think has underperformed the last couple of years. This is the Western Michigan team. Don't forget, P.J. Fleck had this team 13-1 a couple of years ago. And I was a big P.J. Fleck fan. Being at Rutgers, he was an assistant there. I wanted Rutgers to go after P.J. Fleck. No, Chris Ash is there instead. Is there any chance to go back and get P.J. Fleck? I don't know. I don't know if he would consider it a lateral move or not. But the bottom line is, Lester took over. They haven't been very good. These are basically P.J. Fleck's players, and they're still not doing all that well. And throw in the fact that, look, Wassing's a good quarterback, and he is healthy, but they lost Eskridge, the only FBS player to start at both offense and defense this year, wide receiver and DB. He's out for the year. And also, keep in mind, their top running back, Bellamy, who's 8th in the nation in rushing yards, he's banged up a little. Now, nobody knows if he's going to play or not, but just keep an eye on that too. All things considered, this is a rivalry. I love the connection now that Moore, the quarterback, has with the Virginia Tech transfer, the kid Pimpleton. In 2 games since they've been together, Pimpleton 18, 189 touchdowns. So that's a good relationship there. I'm going to go ahead and take Central Michigan. And I think plus 670 on the money line is definitely worth it. Okay, a few other notes from the games at 12 o'clock. Let's talk about Oklahoma, Texas Tech, because Alan Bauman, the sophomore who was a freshman sensation last year under Cliff Kingsbury, got off to a slow start this year. Matt Wells is there at Utah State, so he brings in his offensive coordinator, David Yost. And Bowman, even though 3rd in the nation or 4th in the nation in yards passing, only a 6-3 touchdown to interception ratio this year. So he really wasn't in sync with the new offense, but he's out. So Alan Bauman is out with a shoulder injury. So it's either Jet Duffy or Rice transfer Jackson Tyner. Not the right time to take on Oklahoma. They've lost 7 straight in that one. Wake Forest, Boston College. Let's see, is that it? No, actually, before we get to the 3:30 games, a few other notes. Buffalo and Miami, their tight end, Buffalo. They don't have a lot of great receivers there right now because they lost a couple of good ones since last year. But the tight end, Zach Lefevre, has missed the last 2 weeks with an injury. He's doubtful again. And he's 2nd on the team in receiving and yards. And he has the only 2 touchdowns, I think. Maybe the only 2 touchdowns receiving. The passing offense isn't very good for Buffalo this year. The kid is the quarterback is gone as well. So so that's why I just want to mention when you got one of your very few remaining receiving targets on the roster, you want to mention when he's not available. I still like Buffalo against Miami. They're a better team. Miami just hasn't been able to get going yet. But hey, this is a MAC game, so now these 2 teams will really see what they've got. Maybe the non-conference season is over between both of them. BYU lost their star running back, or their top running back, Tyson Williams. The South Carolina grad transfer got injured late in the first half against Washington. Now, that was actually within BYU's grasp early in the second half. But without Williams, they weren't able to produce anything. So just keep that in mind. That game could have went a different way, BYU-Washington last week, but Williams was lost late in the first half. Now I don't know what BYU is going to do on the ground. They can say, oh, we got this guy, we got that guy. Well, prove it. Toledo might be a pretty good play today, but who knows? I mean, Toledo is 9-1 against the spread in the last 10 versus an opponent off a straight-up double-digit loss. Okay, let's move on to those 3:30 games. Wake Forest. And as you know, if you've been watching our shows the last couple of years on the Our Lads Football Radio Network, you know how highly I think of what Dave Clawson has done there at Wake Forest, and I'm a big Jamie Newman fan. As soon as he started playing last year, loved what I saw, picked him in the bowl, had a big bowl game, and talked a couple days ago with Mitch about he should be a Heisman sleeper, even though he won't be, but he should be. That's the job. He's 10th in passing nationally, and he's got 160 yards on the ground with 3 touchdowns. So Wake Forest has started 4-0 in 3 of the last 4 years. This is their first opportunity to go 5-0 in that stretch under Dave Clawson. The road team has won 5 straight in the Wake Forest-Boston College series and covered 4 out of 5. Okay, let's stick with the 3:30 games. And 2 games I like at 3:30, Temple and Michigan State. And Temple is, that line has actually gone down from 10 to 8. I'm not sure why. I really don't. Maybe they think they know something I don't. They got beat up by Buffalo. I guess that's it. But Temple's a much better team than Georgia Tech right now. Jeff Collins, the head coach at Temple, leaves Temple to go to Georgia Tech. So what do you think the players at Temple feel about this game? Okay. Meanwhile, Temple has the 19th best defense in college football right now. Georgia Tech, 126 in the nation offensively. They're trying to go from the triple option to a regular offense, and you just can't do it when you don't have the personnel. So we knew they were going to struggle. They lost to the Citadel last week, Georgia Tech, okay? They even barely beat South Florida as bad as the Bulls have been playing. And so I don't care what Temple did at Buffalo, because Buffalo is a pretty good team from the MAC. Anthony Russo, what a much better year he's having. I mentioned before the season began that I thought Temple was going to be a better team than people thought, and this is so far so good, even though they had a stumble last week. But Russo, get this, last year completed 57% of his passes for 197 passing yards a game. This year, 314 yards a game, and his completion percentage has gone up to 59%. So I like Temple big time, 8 points in that one over Georgia Tech. I also like Michigan State against Indiana because if you take a look at this one, Michigan State has covered 7 straight against Indiana at home, both straight up and against the spread. The defense is phenomenal. Indiana may get Penix back to quarterback. I'm not so sure that's going to matter too much. Their top offensive lineman went out for the year. That's a big blow going up against Michigan State's defense. This is the first true road game of the year for Indiana. And I just think Michigan State, with Ohio State on the road and Wisconsin on the road coming up in the next 2 weeks, you know what they want to do here, and that's just get Indiana out of the way early, rest your players. Some people might say, look ahead. I'm not. I'm saying let's just dispose of this team early, no-nonsense game. We got some big games. We cannot afford a close game with Indiana with these 2 big-time teams coming up. The 2 teams who might be, right now, favored to play in the Big Ten Championship game. Okay, Iowa State-Baylor, by the way, is a big game at 3:30. That's a fun game. As you also know, I'm a big Matt Campbell believer. I also believe in Matt Rule at Baylor. They're actually playing some pretty good defense, too, which shouldn't be a surprise because that's what Matt Rule does. So keep that in mind. Baylor is the success of Baylor, and Mitch and I both liked Baylor being a pretty good team to keep an eye on this year as well. That's why this is a real good underrated football game, Iowa State and Baylor, and we'll see how this one goes. Again, this one is at 3:30. Okay, let's stick at 3:30 games. Clemson and North Carolina. And I think Clemson is going to lose one game this year that no one expects them to lose. I think that will be more than likely at home, believe it or not. But it could be on the road. I don't know if it's here. I don't think it's going to be here. But if I can throw a couple of bucks at 12-1 on the money line with North Carolina, I'm going to do it. Because I'm going to be right. At least I feel I'm going to get a big number and beat Clemson this year. Now, I'm not going to do it every week. I'm just going to pick my spots and where I think it could happen. This might be one of them. I'm not going to say it's my favorite spot, but if I had like a top 5, they'd be in it. So, because look, North Carolina, Mac Brown, they're exceeding expectations. I don't care that they've lost the last couple of weeks. They're still playing a lot better than people had anticipated before the season began. First matchup of these two teams since the 2015 ACC championship game. Now, Ole Miss is going to play Alabama, and we debated this, Mitch and I, a couple days ago, of whether or not Ole Miss should go with the two freshmen, Rise Plumlee, who really sparked the Rebels late in the game against Cal. They got, I thought, and I think a lot of people thought they got ripped off in as far as the bad call at the end of the game against Cal. Not sure they would have made the two-point conversion, but the fact is the kid energized the offense because Coral just wasn't playing well. He just wasn't. So I think they should go with the freshman, but do you start him at Alabama in his first start? That's the thing you got to keep in mind. Alabama's beaten Ole Miss by a 128-110 margin the last 2 years. Ouch. Also at 3:30, one of my top picks is Virginia against Notre Dame. I don't think Virginia's getting enough respect right now. They're a 12-point dog in this one. They're 4-1 on the money line. And I like Virginia's defense. Mendenhall, once again, Mitch and I, Athlon Sports, as you can see there, they had Virginia winning the Coastal, playing in the championship game, and I agreed with that. Now, they don't have to beat Notre Dame for that to happen, but this is an opportunity for Virginia to get respect. Notre Dame coming off a really tough loss to Georgia. It's going to be impossible for Notre Dame to replicate the emotions of last week's game. And Virginia, yeah, they got down by ODU, but Virginia is looking ahead. Virginia was looking, and maybe they were looking ahead at Notre Dame, and there's reason why they got behind in that one. But I think Virginia, Jordan Mack, excellent linebacker for the Cavaliers. They've got the dual threat quarterback that can cause problems for Notre Dame. So I like Virginia getting the points. And as well, why not put something on the money line at 4-1? Underrated game in this Conference USA, by the way, is Florida Atlantic and Charlotte. And I'm kind of leaning towards Florida Atlantic in that one because Charlotte's got some banged-up defenders. Jeff Gemmell, the two-time third-team Conference USA linebacker, had an ankle injury week 3, didn't play last week, and is questionable this week. Marquise Gibbs, the safety, is also questionable. He leads the team in tackles, and they're already without last year's top tackler, safety Ben DeLuca, for the season. So 3 key defenders banged up, 1 out for the year for Charlotte. And I like the way Robinson is starting to play at quarterback now for FAU. They look like they're getting into a groove now after getting beat up by some big-time teams like Central Florida and in Ohio State. But this is Conference USA now. So I'm kind of leaning towards FAU. Even though I mentioned earlier in the season Charlotte was one of my sleepers, if not my top sleeper from the Conference USA. Speaking of sleeper, Appalachian State, Coastal Carolina in the Sun Belt. I like Coastal Carolina in this one. Jamie Chadwell, who was a very good, successful coach at the FCS levels, taken over for Moglia, and I think he's doing an excellent job. They're 7th overall in defense nationally. They got a very good defensive front led by a Clemson transfer defensive tackle, this kid by the name of Sterling Johnson. And App State coming off the biggest win the program has had in years, and they got to come back in a week and take on a Coastal Carolina team that's red hot. This is a really good matchup of underrated running backs nationally. I'm a big, as you know, Duranton Evans fan for Appalachian State. He's electrifying. But keep an eye on C.J. Marable, the running back for Coastal Carolina, who leads the team in rushing and receiving. Not much of a passing game of Coastal Carolina, which is why App State's better than them, because they have a quarterback that's a big edge in this matchup. But bottom line is, I think this is a really good matchup. 15 and a half, whatever it is. I think the point spread's too high. I definitely like the points. And why not? Money line is plus 530. I think it's worth throwing a couple of bucks on that one. By the way, App State 1-5 against the spread. Their last 6 at home versus an opponent off a straight-up win. Minnesota-Purdue. Minnesota coming off the bye week. Actually, both teams coming off the bye. But Minnesota, boy, it's like they're winning all sorts of crazy ways. They have to find a way to win a lot easier. They get Shannon Brooks back, the kid who had 2 ACLs a couple years ago in 1 year. Just a shame, but they're supposed to get him back. I think they're a better team than Purdue. I'd go with them in that one. And we don't know if Sindelar is going to be able to play. He's still in concussion protocol. So keep that in mind, even though it looks like he probably will. USC-Washington, I like USA in this one. Get this. USC is 1-13 against the spread. Last 14 as a road dog. The only win versus Washington. That's right. They beat Washington the last time these two teams played in Washington, so as weird as that is. The road team has won 3 straight in the series since 2012. So they haven't played a lot since 2012. But the last game, 2016, USC won by 13 as an 8.5-point dog. Matt Fink gets the start again, I would assume. Washington, Easton had his best game. I'm just still not sold on Washington yet. I'm just not. I still think they're a very good team in the Pac-12, but I don't know that they're that much better than USC. Maybe they'll prove that to me in this one, but I'm willing to take the chance that USC plus 10, plus 320 on a money line might be able to make it a little interesting. All right, let's see. Let's go Cincinnati Marshall. I just want to mention this one because Marshall has been without their number one receiver, Obialo, all season with a leg injury. We don't know when he's coming back, but that's a big loss because their number one receiver is a redshirt freshman with 122 yards receiving, and they got the 98th passing offense in college football. So Marshall needs to get their receiver back. But I like Cincinnati in the game. They're about a 3.5-point favorite. Big game coming up for Cincinnati. They host Central Florida on Friday. So one of the better teams from the AAC against one of the better teams from the Conference USA. Nice little matchup there. Here's another team to keep an eye on in the Sun Belt, Louisiana Lafayette. Lafayette, I like the fact Billy Napier is doing a great job there. Took the team to the first ever Sun Belt Championship game last year. They're off to a good start again this year. Regis, the running back, is 11th nationally in rushing. They may be, though, without their top edge rusher, so keep that in mind. It looks like he may be out of the game. He was injured last week against Ohio, but I still like him in this game against Georgia Southern. Maybe Georgia Southern gets Wirtz, their quarterback, back in action. He was injured week 1. Tomlin was doing okay rushing, but not much in the passing game. They were also without their fullback, their banged-up offensive line. So I like Lafayette in that one. And like I said, I think Napier's doing a very good job with the program. And they will host App State in 11 days on a Wednesday. So that's a big game for Lafayette, taking on App State. Let's see, Arkansas State and Troy. I want to mention this one because Bonner, the quarterback, is out for Arkansas State with a thumb injury. He was leading the Sun Belt in passing. He's done for the year. So we're going to keep an eye on Lane Hatcher. Hopefully I won't need to read my writing for this kid next week. But Hatcher, Alabama transfer, who was like big-time Arkansas high school quarterback. Matter of fact, all-time leader in Arkansas in passing, yards and touchdowns. So he'll get a shot. And I don't know how he's going to play. But Arkansas State has also lost second-team Sun Belt defensive lineman Kevin Thurman with a broken hand. He's out 2 to 4 weeks. And running back Ryan Grayman to an ACL injury last week. Plus their top rusher, the kid Murray's banged up. Now they still have one running back left as of week A. So at least one of the three might be healthy. Troy's a 7-point favorite. I'm staying away from this game, but I'm still intrigued by the quarterback situation there, which is why I'd probably stay away myself, even though I know Mitch likes Troy in that one. Kansas State, Oklahoma State is a real good Big 12 matchup, another good Big 12 matchup. They've covered 7 out of 8 Kansas State has over Oklahoma State. And they're 8th in total defense. The Cowboys are 11th in total offense, so that's a nice matchup. Chuba Hubbard leading college football with 642 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns. Mississippi State, will it be the freshman, the true freshman Garrett Schrader again against that vaunted Auburn defense led by defensive tackle Derek Brown? If it is, I think Mississippi State's in trouble. The kid, not much of a passer, more in the running game. Statistically, he was okay in the passing game, but they don't ask him to do a whole lot down the field because Stevens has been banged up, the transfer. We'll see how that goes. Auburn gets Florida on the road next week. First of 3 straight on the road. So another reason why a team like Auburn, just like Michigan State, needs to take care of business at home. Also, by the way, I like UAB. They've been one of my favorite pet teams the last couple of years. All they do is cover. They're a 3-point favorite at Western Kentucky, 2.5 3-point favorite. Steve Duncan, the quarterback for Western Kentucky, is out for the year with a foot injury. Arkansas transfer Ty Story gets the start. Utah State, Colorado State, talk about a banged-up Ram team. First, they lose their quarterback Hill for the year. Patrick O'Brien throws for over 400 yards last week. But now their star wide receiver, Warren Jackson, who's having a very good start to the season, is doubtful with a concussion. And the running back, Kinsey, who's second in the nation in yards, is banged up and doubtful in the game with a shoulder injury. He separated it last week. He had 246 on the ground against Toledo. So that's asking a lot in the Utah State game with Jordan Love. As you know, I'm a big Jordan Love fan. Utah State at LSU next week. So how about that? Maybe a sandwich game for Utah State after finally beating San Diego State for the first time in like 45 years or something. So I still might take the points in this one with Colorado State. Not sure I'd gamble on the money line, but I think Colorado State is showing a lot. And by the way, they've beaten Colorado State 2 of the last 3 years. And by the way, Kentucky, I'd also keep an eye on Sawyer Smith. He's banged up. He was really bad last week, playing injured. The quarterback situation is a mess with guys' bodies all over the place for the Wildcats. I don't know if Sawyer Smith's going to play. And if he does, I don't know how effective he's going to be. And Kentucky's beaten South Carolina 5 consecutive years straight up and against the spread. The Gamecocks are a 3-point favorite in that one. Ohio State, Nebraska, we talked a lot about this on our show on Thursday about, and it's well chronicled if you've been paying attention, about Ohio State losing the last 4 years, ranked second, ranked third, ranked second in this spot. So if you're thinking it's going to happen again, why not? That's what I'm doing. Plus 580, 6-1 on the money line. I think it's worth the gamble. We'll see if Justin Fields steps up in a big situation on the road. Lincoln's going to be crazy. The last time they saw the Buckeyes, they got destroyed 56-14 in 2017. You know what happened already with Houston and the quarterback and the wide receiver redshirting. Still, I'm a little bit skeptical about them getting 8 points by North Texas with their star receiver out for the year, North Texas. So we'll see. I think Hornibrook should start against North Carolina State. I'm not even sure Blackman's going to be healthy enough to start. We'll see. I think Hornibrook's right now. I'd go with him. He's a winner. Blackman hasn't proven to be a winner yet. UNLV, the number 2 rusher, Charles Williams in the nation. I'm taking UNLV in the points in that one because they're 18-5 in their last 23 as a road dog, including the cover at Northwestern. And every game this year for Wyoming has been decided by 9 points or less, and Wyoming is favored by 9. Moss is out for Utah against Washington State. I'm going back to UCLA again. How can I not go back to UCLA after what they did for me last week? They've won 6 out of 7 against Arizona. They've got a winnable schedule coming up. This is the start of that. And I think they're for real now. I think what I saw wasn't a gimmick. I'm a big Felton fan now. That's another kid that I think should get consideration for the Heisman, even though he won't. And we'll see. Even though I still think that Arizona is playing a lot better than what we saw last year. Tate's running around more, which I think is important because you got to be able to utilize his athleticism, which was something that made him like a Heisman sensation the last month of, a couple of years ago before someone took over. Okay, that's going to wrap it up. Hope you enjoyed it. Now we'll be back hopefully earlier in the week, next week, Thursday or Friday. So we'll have a little bit more time for everybody, for us to get this out on social media. We'll try to improve upon the format, especially going conference by conference instead of by time chronologically. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up. Our Lads Football Radio Network. We'll see you again on Thursday with Mitch Light from Athlon Sports for more college football talk. And, of course, we also have our NFL shows with Mark Lawrence on Thursday. And Dave Koken is going to join us on Tuesday. It's a new show, Tuesday night, 7 o'clock. We're going to air that show with our partners at PrimeSportsNetwork.com. We're going to kind of wrap up the week in college football, talk a little NFL as well. So Dave Koken from Covers.com, our handicapping partners, will help us to talk about that and get us off to another good week. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Have a great day, everybody watching college football.